Hello everybody, welcome back and thank you so much for joining me today on a very special video. We're talking about 2026 updates to the EKKO line, both the 23B and the 22A on the Transit here. Now, since the conception of the EKKO line with the 22A, it's been immensely popular. For an extended season Class C or B+, this has really taken a foothold in the space. And we're starting to see other manufacturers scramble to try to catch up to what Winnebago has here and has only been improving on since its introduction. So to begin, we're going to talk about the 2026 EKKO 22A here on the Ford Transit chassis. Now we have fantastic chassis features with 2026, like this front-facing camera, doing a better job of traffic sign assist, blind spot assist, and the Distronic cruise control is only improved by these features. And underneath the hood, it's important to mention that we have a gasoline power plant here, a 3.5 liter V6 EcoBoost. So fantastic torque figures, horsepower, and this guy can tow 5,000 pounds, 500 pounds vertical load on that rear drop bar, just like its larger Sprinter counterpart here. And both chassis are gonna have all-wheel drive despite the dually rear axle. So this makes it an even better off-road, off-grid adventure van here. And so one thing I really wanna mention is with 2026, we now have full body carbonized gray exterior paint, really tying in the look. It's something that was available on the 23B, and we're very happy to see it on the 22A. And we're also going to see the Desert Ridge and Desert Mountain exterior paints come to the 23B and the 22A. So you can get another full body paint with full graphics, just like the Raw Sienna and Verdant like you've been able to before. And down here, I wanted to mention, we still have from factory a 320 amp Lithionics battery with Bluetooth connectability and heat pack already installed from factory. This is just a drain pump for our shower here, still insulated in an exterior compartment. And there's a lot in the design and the construction of these that makes it such a capable extended van. And we'll talk more about that when we get inside and get further along with the features. I also want to mention you can option out the generator from factory. With the 22A, you're going to get a gasoline 2800 watt generator back here, and we're going to get a slightly different generator on the 23B. But this 2800 watt generator you can option out and get a second 320 amp battery and get a total of 640 amps with your EKKO here. And both EKKOs are going to have a 5.5 gallon cassette tank. So to kind of extend your black tank usage, people can get additional cassettes and keep them in the large rear storage. We've got our Truma Vario heat exhaust there. So the heat is going to be from a Vario heat from Truma on both models, and we're going to have a 13,500 BTU AC on the roof on both models as well. And I'll talk more about that when we get inside. And the back wing awning, this is an optional accessory that you can have from factory. I have this on both models here to show you that you can get this with either. And it expands the space, and I would mention on the 22A, it's a little more reachable. It's still above my height at 6 foot here, but we can use this to expand the rear space, access the rear storage, kind of use some of the power output here, maybe set up an outdoor TV. It's just a very nice option to have along. And in addition to thicker wall insulation, the EKKOs are going to come with these dual pane acrylic windows. This is also a much better insulator than the glass pane windows and just contribute to further extended season stay. And if you look up to the top there, you can see both models I have inside today have the luggage rack. With the 22A, you're going to get 285 watts of solar on the roof, and you are still going to get an external solar port. So if you want to expand that, right here we could hook in another panel. You would want to use a regulated one that's not going to exceed 10 amps of input rating or 230 watts of solar panel down here, just to make sure it's suited for the controller inside, 50 amps amp controller. We have a water management system right here on the 23B and the 22A. This is going to be insulated. We also have the heat ducted into here, so we don't have to worry about any of these ends or fittings here being exposed to too cold of temps. And we have lights, heat, we have a gravity fill and pressurized water fill in the management system there. So the huge draw with the EKKO, both the 22A and the 23B, is this very large rear garage system we have here. We have aluminum L-tracks in all four corners. and this removable drip tray so we can clean out this area if we have, you know, bikes, tires, mud, anything accumulating in the storage here. This is also heated, and we have 110 and 12 volt power, as well as Molly panels on both doors on the side here. So one of the best available rear garages. And I also want to point out, you can see the rear park assist sensors that have been repositioned from the original Transit van. The safety features on board are really, really incredible between the two models. And I wanted to mention, if you don't go with the luggage rack that we have up there, there is a rooftop tent option, which will still give you 220 watts of solar and a decent sized bed for 2 people. I'm gonna go over the bed sizes when we go inside here. And I wanna mention, we do have a ladder here for roof access. So if we're storing stuff off that luggage rack, we do have the access ladder. And these rear boxes are actually the blind spot, or really the blind spot monitoring sensors expanded so we can get a larger kind of cone of detection behind the RV here. So this is one of the improvements that I'm just a huge fan of. And getting to some of my favorite features here, I want to mention we have an exterior LP port right here. So if you're using a Weber grill or a Blackstone, anything that you have in the rear garage, if you're going to be cooking underneath your awning, you have the port accessible right there. And one of my other favorite features is, instead of having a mounted fixed tank underneath the EKKO, we have 2 exchangeable tanks right here. Makes it a lot easier to kind of get a new tank when you need to replenish, as well as all the appliances are very efficient on running on propane, especially this Truma Comfort AquaGo right here. This also will have settings for cleaning out the system, for cold weather camping, and it has an internal filter. It's very easy to winterize the system. Really, all Winnebagos are very, very good about telling you how to winterize when the time comes, and we'll always recommend, if you're in below freezing temps, to at least have some antifreeze on you and be familiar with the process. Now, moving along, we've got wonderful wheels on both. The 22A wheels are very sleek, stylized, but so are the 23B. And one huge difference between the 22A and 23B, not the exterior outlets here, but this compartment storage. Now I'm gonna put in an insert for the exterior tailgate package, where you get a fridge freezer. There's also a gas cooktop that comes out and a bale sink. But even if you're not using it for that option, you have a larger storage in the front on the 22A, despite the 23-foot length and the 10'6" height of the 22A here. So I want to let you get the first impression going inside, and let's talk about it a little bit more here. So first thing I'm going to mention when I'm coming into the 22A here is we have a nice metal crate screen door, so we don't have to worry about pets pushing through the screen. And it's also nice and durable to last a little bit longer than the average bear, and still will pass through plenty of air when you have this as your screen door. And coming in, I'm actually going to skip the kitchenette and the front living space area, and I'm going to start with the rear bedroom. So on the 22A, we actually have slightly lower steps to get in and out of the bed back here. And the van itself is actually a bit lower, so the entry and exit of the van being lower is attractive to some of our clients. But with the 22A, it's worth mentioning that as 2 twin beds, we have a 32 by 76 bed on each side, or as one large bed, we have a 60 by 80 bed back here. And if you option the additional pop top sleeping on the roof, you have a 52 by 79 bed on the roof for an additional couple people. So the 22A is designed to really sleep 4, but you always have the option of an additional cab bed in the front that inflates along the seats, and that would be roughly 64 by 30 inches in the front. So sleeping 4 to 5 on either chassis is really not too difficult, but there's a slightly different interior on the 23B that I'm excited to show you. And I want to mention we have with 2026 a GE Profile AC back here. This is significantly quieter than some of the competitors on the market, and it's also a very efficient lower amp draw than some of the other competitors on the market. So we're happy to have this paired with the 2000 watt sine wave inverter and the 320 amps of lithium battery. So we still have some storage back here. Of course, we have plenty of power, both 12 volt USB 2 and 110 outlets back here. And of course, dual pane windows and a place here for coaxial for your TV, and a TV mount essentially with power in the corner. But as we move along, I want to mention we've got our heat and our AC controls, as well as one of our thermostatic sensors, and then switches for our bathroom here. Now, between the 22A and the 23B, we're going to have a very similar bathroom, maybe just a little more height in the 23B here, but same 51-gallon gray and 50-gallon fresh, as well as 5.5-gallon cassette tank. And we're going to have a larger shower compartment when we move the wall over. And of course, that teak floor mat is removable. So when you're using it as a shower, you have one, a little more roof height, and two, the ability to put that insert back in and then step into a dry shower pan when you're using the bathroom. With the 22A, we're also going to get this nice little cabinet here behind the kitchenette where we have adjustable shelves, so more pantry storage or just general items, as well as a deep storage underneath our gas cooktop. This is an important distinction between the 22A and 23B. 23B, you're going to get an induction cook plate, but with the 22A, we're still cooking with propane inside the coach here. And of course, got a couple more drawers for storage. And the countertop cover just makes a little more prep space when we're not using it, as well as the glass top on our stove. And I want to mention we've got a Norcold fridge. It does have the cold weather temp mode, and it does have a nighttime mode. So we can cut the compressor draw. So if you're sleeping in bed just behind the fridge, you're not hearing this kick on as frequently, excuse me. And there's our AC just turned on, just going to cool it down in the coach. The microwave above here, this is not a convection microwave, I just wanted to mention that. And then as we get to the seats, we have two really nice automotive jump seats here with 3-point harnesses and anchors, so if you're doing a car seat or something like that, you have space for it. As well as this flip-up table, so an additional workspace, or if you've rotated the seats and you're using the booster cushions, now it's more comfortable to kind of face the inside and have your feet rest on the floor. And you can also use this table or the Lagoon table and kind of be dining with 4 or just entertaining, playing a game with 4 people. And I want to mention this entertainment center option here. With the 22A, there's one additional item you get with the TV and the soundbar. You can also get a Blu-ray player with the 22A, but not the 23B. So let's move over to the 23B. I'll talk more about the thermal curtains and the blackouts for the cabs. They're available on both, and the chassis features will differ just slightly between the two, and we'll get more in that on a second. So now talking about the 2026 EKKO 23B on the Sprinter chassis, one of the first things that's going to start is the differences begin kind of right in front of the wheel well. So on the 170-inch wheelbase with the Sprinter chassis, we have a propane 2500 watt generator. And of course, if you option this out, we can get an additional battery in the battery compartment up here, but instead of a 640 watt amp hour total, we're going to a 630 amp hour total from factory with the EKKO 23B. If you wanted to keep your generator and do a different battery, I would typically recommend talking to a service center like Colonial RV. And on the Sprinter chassis, we still have all-wheel drive, but we're not going to be running on a gasoline motor. We have the diesel 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo motor with the Sprinter chassis, and we have a 9-speed automatic transmission that's actually very, very more suited for kind of being out west than the V6 was previously. Better torque and horsepower, but one huge difference between the 23B and the 22A, the tank sizes, of course, we still have a 50-gallon fresh water tank and a 51-gallon gray water tank and a 5.5-gallon black water tank, but we only have a 24.5-gallon diesel fuel tank and a 31-gallon gasoline fuel tank with the 22A. So it makes the propane generator, of course, makes sense on the diesel model, but the gasoline generator makes more sense on the 22A because you have more of a fuel solution there. And then, of course, on the 23B, instead of having an exterior tailgate area, we have a 24-foot 6-inch chassis, but they've allocated the storages slightly different. And instead of the 10-foot 6 height that we have on the 22A, we have a 10-foot 11 height on the Sprinter. So it's a little bit higher off the ground. We only have a storage solution here and here. So you can still bring some large items along, but of course everything in the rear here is going to be about the same. The garage, we have a little more height because the overall height of the van, but the shelf is a little bit deeper on the 23B. And one thing I forgot to mention on both models here is that entryway awning, this patio awning, is actually optional. So if you've had an RV and you didn't really use that entryway awning, you could always option that out. And the other thing I want you to take a look at is underneath the rear of my Class C here, we still have a spare tire mounted underneath. On a lot of Class Cs, in order to keep your occupant cargo and carrying capacity as high as possible, they'll remove that spare tire. So we have an overall 11,000 gross vehicle weight rating on the 22A and 11,030 on the 23B. And we have an OCC of around 1,600 pounds with the 22A. And on the 23B, if you're ever on a lot and you want to look for that figure, right on the passenger side door, we should have a printout with our OCC. And on the 23B, you can see it's 1,259 pounds. So between the exterior there, I think we're about up to speed. We still have blind spot monitoring with the 23B and a lot of the same safety chassis features, but Mercedes is known for having the best in class, of course. So let's get inside. There's a little bit of a difference in the floor plan between the 22A and 23B. So walking to the 23B, we have the same front screen door. And walking to the rear, you're going to see that the beds are slightly elevated. And also, this interior option is called the Verdis. The 22A you just saw, that is the Juniper exterior. They're available for both of the models here. And also, the rear beds are a little bit different with the configuration on the 23B. We have a 32 by 80 inch bed and on each side, or a 60 by 80 with the cushion in the center, making a large bed here. We have really the same storage solutions and power outlets, just with the 23B, of course, we're slightly higher than the 22A. And also, if we were to get the rooftop option, the pop top tent option on the 23B here, we'd have, of course, that 52 by 79 inch bed. So you would be able to sleep more, but there's actually another place to sleep someone in the 23B that you don't have in the 22A. I want to show you that, of course, the fridge is no longer to my right here. It's now a little bit further away from me. And we do have a convection microwave instead of just a standard microwave in the 23B. But you don't see a cooktop on the countertop space here because they want you to use the induction cook plate when you're going to be cooking inside the coach. Of course, you still have that propane quick connect on the exterior, so if you're cooking with the grill outside, you still can do so. And we still have the storage underneath the sink here, this large dual door, as well as not 2 but 3 drawers to the left now, one of which that we have the induction cook plate in. And this is a countertop extension that'll go on top of the cook plate here, so you have a little more prep space when you're working in the kitchen. And of course, we should see the same bathroom. We have a GE profile AC above me here, but you can see large shower compartment. Someone at 6 foot like myself fits actually wonderfully in here. Let me step in for you real quick. This is actually comfortable and I have elbow room compared to a lot of wet baths on the market. And we don't have our little pantry storage right here, but we do have the Norcold fridge, which I did not mention on the other model, does have this top freezer compartment. So Ben & Jerry's, everything you want to keep cold. And we do have a compartment with our roof access port here. Still available in the 22A, just some of these controls will be in slightly different locations. And to mention again, that exterior solar port does go to your controller here. It's a 50 amp controller, or 40 amp controller, excuse me. So we just want you to regulate roughly 10 amps at that exterior port. And of course, this is where it gets a little bit different. In the front here, this is actually going to make an additional bed, 30 by 79 inches. So you can really sleep 5 with the pop top option with the 23B, and still really 4 to 5, but maybe even 6 in this if you're doing 2 on the pop top, 2 in the rear, 1 on a cab bed, and 1 in the bed right here. So let me show you what that looks like made up. And in addition to a 30 by 79 bed, this also becomes seating for dining with a table on a pedestal in the center here. It also slides out of the way. But in addition to have a 3-point harness here for a front-facing passenger, you have a lap belt here for someone facing the aisle. So real quick, let me show you what it looks like as dining. So as dining, of course, with the electronically adjustable front Mercedes seats rotated, we have seating for really 4 to 5. And with sleeping for 4 to 5, this is a fantastic option with the 23B. Of course, we end up at the 24-foot 6-inch mark with the 23B, but this front section is where that difference is mainly made from. You have a more modular entertaining space as well as sleeping space, so this has made the 23B a very, very popular option. So thank you all for joining me today. Please let me know below in the comments what you love about the EKKOs and what you don't like, but we can all agree that it's plain to see why it's such a successful off-grid and off-road Class C, and why we see so many competitors try to bring their version of the market.